Linda, I'm keen to try you. Pemblith Luan, the Mavi. Happy birthday to me, or to Kroeder Kroghen more precisely, and to all those people who have contributed to Kroeder Kroghen through the past year, because today's programme is actually the 52nd since we started. It's a little over a year, actually, in calendar year, because the very first Kroeder Kroghen programme was on the 4th of October, 1987. Today, of course, is the 16th. And to mark a year's existence of Kroeder Kroghen, in a couple of weeks' time, I'm going to be playing you some very short clips of the choicest bits that have been broadcast over the past year. But now to press on with today's programme, because there's a lot to report. First of all, to bring you up to date with the photography exhibition by Lorna West that I trailed last week. Well, in the afternoon after the programme, I actually went to see it and enjoyed it thoroughly. But don't take my word for it. I asked Vaughan Tregenza, who is himself a very well-respected amateur photographer, to give me his view of Lorna West's exhibition.
I think it's a wonderful exhibition. I think there's a great variety here. Some shots form a good record of Cornish scenes, but others approach them in a very creative way and produce an atmosphere of Cornwall which is very authentic.
You've seen several exhibitions of other people's work, presumably. How do you rate Lorna West by comparison with the others?
I rate this very high, both for the variety and for the interest of the subject. Obviously, she's worked very hard to get these pictures because they've been the light has been well chosen, and the success of any picture is choosing the right time and the right light. And I think Lorna has done that excellently.
And they convey the spirit of Cornwall well.
They do. As a Cornishman, I look around here, and when I look at the Cornish scenes in particular, I feel that they accurately portray the spirit and feel of Cornwall.
Vaughan Tregenza, an authoritative and respected opinion. And to move on quickly, a notice concerning Kurenza singers, who I've been plugging fairly extensively, who of course are going to Australia next spring. And they invite members of the public to their Grand Autumn Draw, which is to take place at the Porthminster Hotel, St.Ives, at 8 p.m. this Tuesday, Tuesday the 18th. And they themselves will be providing the entertainment, and I recommend it highly. So just to repeat, the Kurenza Singers at the Porthminster Hotel, St.Ives, at 8 p.m. this Tuesday, Tuesday the 18th. Wel, Olen Seithen, Maribo Chwarfos, on an brasa Chwarfosu, in Bis Celtic lemon, Henu Loenda Perrin. Well, as well as all those people from all over Celtia who've been visiting Loenda Perrin for the festival itself, there has been a very important delegation from different Celtic countries who came to Perranporth not simply to enjoy the festival, but actually to work and to continue their business, because they are, in fact, Eurocrats. They are the United Kingdom Committee of the European Bureau for Lesser Used Languages. And I spoke with their chairman, Jack MacArthur, who is from the Isle of Skye. He's had a long journey to Perranporth, hasn't he? Who is also, as well as chairman of that committee, the president of the Council of the Bureau for Europe. In company with Dr. Ken George, who is the Cornish representative on the United Kingdom Committee, I asked Jack MacArthur why the UK committee had come to Perranporth and what was the purpose of their deliberations here.
We came down this morning from different parts. Some came down 2 or 3 days ago, some came yesterday. The first time, I think, that the UK committee has met in Cornwall, and we're delighted to be here to see for ourselves what's going on and to look at the state of the language as it is at present.
Is that the main purpose of your visit, to examine Cornish, as it were?
No, it's we have meetings 2 or 3 times a year of the UK committee. We try and visit 1 or 2 of the linguistic areas during these meetings, so that we can get a feel of what is going on. And this time we had a kind invitation to come down here. We're having a normal meeting of the committee of the Bureau, the UK committee, looking at developments in the European field since we last met. Very important developments for the future of minority languages. Last year, the European Parliament passed a resolution supporting minority languages, indigenous, autochthonous minority languages. In other words, those that have always been there. And just 2 or 3 weeks ago, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe supported an initiative similar to that, which is now going to the ministers of these 23 states. We're living in interesting times when many languages are under threat of extinction, when some are beginning to revive, like the Cornish situation, and where others are extremely strong.
Ken, jag vill tälja this till you excellent Celtic now, to you canas the word kernel than Celtic. You had a
an in ezel a gerno of e a miri be hana nanju tempo webleven namin.
I thought the Albert G ribber the Warren rack and a cheson rack kernel bos dathlis gansen Celtic ma rack wheelas ahans in weth pope.
Raquilas Arhans, sir, med ninjas mura Arhans gansen bureau e honnen, mes the wara kerno war nivel Europec. Harejul the verbos degamares in Europe, kerno avel gloise, as one as you avel gloise, and yeth you as one as in ta.
Jack, Ken has just said that as Cornwall's representative on this committee, he feels now that the case for Cornwall being recognised as a nation with a language in Europe has been made and has generally been accepted. Is that so?
I think what has happened is many years ago the UK committee of the Bureau recognised the Cornish dimension in the lesser used language field, and this is a further strengthening of that case, that we not only have recognised the excitement at seeing a language beginning to appear again over the horizon, as it were, but that we recognise the connections, the very close connections between the Welsh language, the Breton language and the Cornish language. It's one of our indigenous languages. And if you can pull that back at the end of the day, that should be a tremendous encouragement to many other linguistic communities. And our being here, I think, recognises that.
I also asked Ken about Arhan's hard cash. How much does hard cash actually come into considerations about preserving and protecting and promoting minority languages?
There is no doubt that a key factor in the minority language, indeed in any linguistic community, there are two we have identified: education and the media coverage generally. Our main focus has to be on the child, on the world that the child lives, on the things the child sees, on what the child hears. And in that context, the time spent at school, the time spent listening to the radio or watching television, the time reading comics is very important. The last thing we want to do is to have a schizophrenia among young people who may accept the argument that it is important to speak their indigenous language, but sees on every occasion that that language is not being used within the communities they are growing up. That's dangerous. We have lived with that in the Celtic areas and many other areas for, in some cases, hundreds of years, in other cases less than that. We want to get it right this time to ensure that there is a covering of all of these areas. You cannot broadcast without money. You cannot make good professional television without money. You cannot produce children's comics for a small number of children without money. More money per individual than is needed for the majority language. So yes, for the foreseeable future, governments that say they are supportive of linguistic communities must show that by doing more than simply issuing election manifestos. They must show it by hard cash put into the areas where the language will be strengthened.
That was Jack MacArthur from the Isle of Skye. Lovely accent, isn't it? Beautiful lilt. And Dr. Ken George of the Cornish Language Board. Now, that all took place in Perranporth on Friday at a lunch which was actually hosted by the Gorseth. The Grand Bard was there to welcome the UK committee. And then yesterday afternoon, I recorded all sorts of conversations and music and things, but because I'm rather short of time today, I'll have to leave all those until next week. However, I will play you the recording of a brief conversation I had with Joyce Stevenson, because it relates to an event that is still to take place later on today, and that is the storytelling session. Here's Joyce Stevenson with the details.
Well, John, I want to tell you a little bit about our storytelling hour. I was asked 2 years ago to MC this storytelling hour, which we decided was such a Celtic thing that it should be included in the programme. Now, the first hour went on for about an hour. Now, last year it went on for 2.5 hours, and can you imagine people from all the Celtic countries coming up to tell stories? It was absolutely fantastic, because as we all know, it is a very Celtic tradition. And if you get a concert, in Ireland, for instance, you always get your storyteller.
That's right, they're called Shonachie in Ireland, aren't they?
Yes,
yeah.
and
drollies or drolls is the old Cornish word.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yes, and as you know, storytelling was thought of as far more important than physical strength by the Celts. And this is probably why there's so little written about them, because they believed in passing on their stories from generation to generation.
And if you want to be part of the generation that continues that, then I should go along this afternoon. 1 o'clock, the Drollies session starts, the traditional Celtic storytelling, in the television room in the Ponsonby Hotel, Porthperrin. And of course there are other events still to take place in Luenderperrin today. At 2 o'clock there are Discusso Dons, dance workshops, Kernewek, Manoek, Hagawerdonek, Cornish, Manx and Irish. Kescan Druid at 4 p.m, an afternoon concert. A church service at the Methodist Church in Perranporth at 6 p.m. And then tonight's big concert is with our Brenda Wotton, Kilkirry, an Irish group, and Persons Unknown, a folk group, not a stranger who's wandered in from the street, followed by the Troil Manoek, the Manx Ceilidh in the ballroom at 10, Dons Albanic, Scottish dancing at 10:30 with the Heriot Watt dances, Troil Werdonek, the Irish Ceilidh, starting at around 11 and probably ending somewhere just in time for breakfast and to get back to work. Marvellous occasion, Luenderperrin, but I'll be telling you much more about it next week and playing you pieces of music and conversation that I've been recording during the past few days. So until next week, mi agus gwelys gwmwras unwaith arte o cysloisorthif ha diwgennych bis nesa seithin. Diwgennych all. God be with you all as always. Diwgennych